Hello music fans, it's Brennan here of Death by Unicorn for another installment of What's New 2022. It's been about 3 weeks since I did the last one of these, so there's been a bunch of new stuff that's come out this year that I've checked out. So I'll be talking about albums that came out on July 8th, 15th, and 22nd in this video. From my favorite to my least favorite that I checked out, they're all good. I usually check things out that I know are going to be good, so nothing bad here, just the ones that I talk about first I love more, and the ones that I talk about last I don't love as much. So starting it off with Imperial Triumphant and their album Spirit of Ecstasy, which came out on the 22nd of July 2022. And this is their 5th album, and to describe the genre is kind of tricky because it's very unique sounding, but I'll say it's like avant-garde, technical, blackened death metal with some jazz influences. Like I said, it's very avant-garde and strange, but it's interesting. It's jazzy, but it's also really dissonant and heavy. There's harsh vocals. There's some cool guest spots on this album from Snake, the vocalist of Voivod, from Alex Skolnick, the guitarist from Testament, and from Kenny G, the saxophone legend. And it's really hard to compare this album to anybody because it's a very unique sound. Now, the second album I'm going to talk about is from Black Midi, and their album's called Hellfire. And this came out on the 15th of July. And this is another quirky one that's hard to define and hard to pin down the genre. It's, I guess, experimental progressive art rock. Also has a bit of jazz and post-punk influences thrown in there. Very quirky. This is their 3rd album. A lot of the vocals sound like they're in between spoken word, rap, and jazz scatting. Very cool, unique, and innovative music. Really good production going on. I think this is even better than their last album, Cavalcade. Also a band that's really hard to compare to anybody else. Thirdly, I'll talk about an album from the band Oceans of Slumber called Starlight and Ash. And this is their 5th album, and it's progressive doom metal with gothic and gospel and rock and pop influences all sprinkled in. This has just amazing female vocals from Cami Beverly. Unlike their last album, there's no screaming on this album. It's just clean singing the whole time. I believe some of the male band members in the past did some of the screaming to kind of have that harsh contrasting with the beautiful clean vocals that Cami does, but this one they just focused on letting her do all the vocals, and they're all clean vocals. I feel this isn't quite as good as their last album, their self-titled album from 2020, which is my favorite of theirs, but it's still pretty great. And it's probably the best vocal performance from Cami that she's done yet. And she's been great from the start. She's great on all their albums. But the compositions are a bit more straightforward than their previous work. So it's not as like progressive and complex and all over the place. The compositions are more accessible. It gives me some Evanescence vibes, as Cami can give Amy Lee a run for her money in terms of vocal talent. But I would have never compared any of their previous work to Evanescence because their music used to be a bit more progressive and complex. So for their past stuff, I would describe them more like Catatonia and Opeth meets Ginger, Wintersea, and Cellar Darling. So if you're a fan of any of those bands, then check out this band, Oceans of Slumber. The 4th album I'm going to talk about is by Alan Parsons, and it's called From the New World. This is the 6th solo album from Alan Parsons. of the Alan Parsons project. So he's also released a bunch of albums under the Alan Parsons project moniker, but this is the sixth one that he's released just as Alan Parsons, and it's progressive rock, but they're pretty simple, accessible, and catchy compositions that you could imagine hearing on the radio. The production is great though. If you're a fan of the Beatles and Pink Floyd, this is kind of reminiscent of that. The fifth album I'll talk about is by Journey, and this came out on July 8th, 2022, and it's called Freedom. This is their 15th album. It's a mixture of hard rock for some songs, and then some other songs are more like pop rock. It sounds like classic 80s Journey, but without Steve Perry on vocals. Arnel Pineda does a great job on vocals, but there's really nothing too special musically here. There's some harder rocking songs, but also a lot of power ballads that sound very 80s. Pretty much exactly what you'd expect a Journey album to sound like. So it is good, it is catchy, but it's nothing special, nothing surprising or innovative going on here. And lastly, I'll talk about an album that came out on July 15th by Senses Fail. It's called Hell Is In Your Head. This is their 8th album, and it's post-hardcore, kind of emo, very emo lyrics and sound. It sounds like the mid-2000s. It's actually kind of surprising that it came out this year because it sounds so mid-2000s emo. It's catchy, but a bit too far on the emo side for my tastes. And that's it. Hope you heard some albums here that are interesting to you and that you'll check out. Until next time, peace out.